We good?
Looking good, man. We're looking good. Yeah.
Yo, you ever thought about like ever being like a twin or something like that?
Have you ever thought about it? Yeah, I thought about it before. It's funny, actually, when I used to live on the other side, I used to live on the south end of the city, over on Grinnell Street, and I had these next door neighbors. There was a little kid, and he had two older sisters or whatever, and he was young. He was probably like 5 or 4, so I'd fuck with him sometimes, and I'd pretend to be a twin. I'd be like talking to him. I'd be like, oh, let me go get like Zach or whatever. I'd run inside the house, change like my shirt, mess my hair up or whatever, come back out. He's like, dude, you have a twin? He's like, can you guys be in the same spot at the same time? Like, nah, dude, my mom needs her, my dad needs them. So I used to like fuck around with it, I guess. But
you're a bully.
Yeah.
It's tough because I had buddies of mine growing up who were pretty close, and one had longer hair, one had shorter hair. I don't know if Tyler and Travis Barbosa's. And when the other would cut his hair short, I'd be like, you gotta be kidding me, dude. I only know the difference.
Were they that identical?
Identical.
Wow.
Like 100%.
Yeah, they should get like tattoos or something like that.
Yeah,
on their foreheads.
Or something to distinguish them. I wonder that. Like, do you think twins want to be like each other, or do you think they want their own identity?
I don't know, because fucking with people is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I would do all day. If I had me rolling around, I'd be like, all right, we're gonna do this all the time.
Yeah. Like, go do the work, and I'm gonna go have fun, and then we'll swap off every week.
It's funny. I was listening to a podcast with Dave Goggins. He was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was talking about these two twins, Marcus and something. They were both Luttrell brothers. One guy was in the Navy SEALs, and I guess he like hurt his knee or something like that. So his brother, who's an identical to him, had to hop in for the training for him. They couldn't even tell the difference until like the very end or whatever, but he was already in the Navy SEALs.
Like, all right, what did we do last week? Blank face on.
Just like,
This episode of the Too Legit podcast is brought to you by Ferdy Construction, the crew you can trust for solid work and no BS. Whether you're renovating, building from the ground up, or just need some expert home improvements, these guys do it all. From framing to finish work, they bring skill, precision, and results that last. Because if it ain't Ferdy, it ain't sturdy. Got a project in mind? Hit them up for a free quote at ferdyconstruction.com. That's ferdyconstruction.com. Let the pros handle it. Big shout out to Ferdy Construction for backing the podcast and keeping the trade strong. Now let's get back to it.
that's wild, though, you know? So I
I'm
guess
pretty sure that's illegal.
Yeah. There's definitely benefits to having a twin, though, for
Pretty sure that's illegal, but hey, we don't say anything.
No judgment here.
What is up? We're back. It's been a hot minute, probably over a month.
Since
You can definitely tell by the scruff of my beard that we have not recorded a podcast in a while. We're back. We got our boy Kyle Aguiar here, the Portuguese mountain man.
How we doing, guys?
Kyle, welcome, man. Thanks for coming.
Oh, thank you.
Oh man, this is awesome.
Hell yeah.
I'm so excited and giddy that I'm doing a podcast. So Kyle's a man of many things. You work in the concrete business.
Yep.
As a manager, correct?
Operations manager.
Is that the same thing like project manager or not really?
So no, project manager would be more geared towards getting a superintendent who's on job, overseeing start to finish. Each and individual sub, making sure that they're kind of fulfilling their end of the contract, everything, kind of a quality control aspect of it too.
Okay.
I'm more of an operations manager. I very much so heavy into the financials of the company as well, logistics. So my job day to day is just, obviously every company sets its goals. I'm kind of, if you want to kind of compare it to a superintendent, I'm like the everyday superintendent, making sure that, we're doing what we set out to do on a day-to-day aspect, week to week, month to month. And the financial aspect, we have goals that we set. Obviously trying to get to those every time. If we're not hitting them, trying to find out why. And then at that point, making adjustments. And there's always, with any business, whether you have one employee, 5 or 100, there's going to be a lot of curveballs that get thrown your way. I kind of that's what my job is. Every time a curveball comes, how do we adjust so we can still hit it out of the park? Yeah. You might swing and miss a couple of times, but ultimate goal is before strike 3.
So did you always start as operations, or did you have to work your way up there?
No, so a little unique situation for me. I started out as a teenager, just kind of, wanted to work.
Just like any other teenager, right?
Yeah.
At least back in the day, teenagers.
It definitely.
Not
It was a
these
little
teenagers,
different than today, but no. But honestly, for me, the reason I got into it, because I wanted things like you said, any other teenager, right? And it was always passed down to me. You can have anything you want in life, but you got to work for it and you got to earn it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of always been instilled in me since I was 13 years old. So that's what I did. Summers, the first summer going into high school, I went out, paid for my first pair of boots, kind of had my book, calculated my hours, and started doing forms.
Damn.
So I've been in my industry for a long time now, if you want to count those years. And obviously that's, a very much so part-time summers and breaks type of thing.
Yeah.
But for about 22 years, if you count that,
Kyle, let me ask them. How
Sure.
old are you?
36.
Damn. Hey, not to be weird, but you look great for 36, man. I just hit 30. I just hit 30 last month, so.
There you go.
And then
Congrats.
now my knee is falling
Welcome.
apart.
That's your next one's got about 3 years left.
Oh man, but so he's 22 years.
As bad as it sounds, saying that I'm in the financial aspects, I forgot I turned 36, so 24 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's all good.
Close
We'll
enough,
we'll
right?
round it up.
Yeah,
Round it up. No, that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, no, it's been good. Like I said, I the thing that I say I'm fortunate about is that I've kind of been in every aspect of the company, so I understand what it's like to be the first guy in the company, newest guy. I worked my way up to being able to do my own jobs as I got older too, and it gave me a good perspective instead of just being somebody who came in doing what I do.
Right.
Gave me the ability to know what it's like to be on that end of it. So obviously, being in a management type of role and it being a family business, you always are trying to do best for the company 24/7. As to me, any employee should be doing, because if you're working for a good company, when they grow, you should be able to grow too. And if you're working for someone who believes in that, I always believe do right by the company and the company will do right by you.
Yeah.
That's my perspective on it. It doesn't matter what company. If you work from our company, if you work for someone else's, find a good boss. Find somebody who's pushing their employees to do well, because if they do well, the company does well, you do well. So it also gives me the ability to kind of have conversations with people that if you haven't been in their shoes, it's hard to understand where they're coming from. So I'm like I said, I'm fortunate in that I was able to have that side of it. Even when I graduated college from UMass Dartmouth, I went in back to the fields, and just the way that worked out, I kind of got taken out of it and put into my position, which was a whole new aspect of what I was doing. So I only knew at that point what it's like to be outside. So then I had to make that transition into something I hadn't done, which is great. I'll be honest with you. I grew from it, not only in my ability to do what I do today, but I feel strongly that if you want to grow, you have to push yourself and make yourself a little uncomfortable. Everything's new. And I always say, even the people who are the absolute best at what they do, at one point were in your shoes. Maybe they had a talent right off, the get-go, right off the rip, that made them really shoot up quick in what they do. But at one point, they knew nothing either. So I feel strongly that regardless of how long you've been doing what you do, how good you are at it, someone was in your shoes at one point, right? So I always try to emphasize, especially new hires, people, you welcome them, make them feel comfortable. I'm not saying baby them or cater to them, but it's a very difficult thing to get into a new job, right? New atmosphere, new people, everything. So I try to give them a push up all the time. And we have a high employee retention rate, because I think a lot of people who I work with do the same. And I always emphasize it. That's a big thing for me is, you're only as good as your team, and your team's is only as good as how you make them. You're going to get people who naturally excel. But it's great when they do. And it's also rewarding when you've helped them get there. Not that you're trying to take, any of that away, saying I did it, but inside you feel, hey, I helped to get them there, and that's a good thing. And you tend to get people that stick around with you.
I love that too, because I think a lot of managers, they just see themselves as someone that pushes people and that profits off others. I like your mindset of it's almost like you're in a coaching role.
Absolutely.
Where it's you want their growth and their betterment, not only for the company, but for themselves. And you get a sense of pride from that.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And if you're a good manager, I feel that you have to be like that. Being in a management or an ownership role isn't a, my way or the highway type of thing. it could be, and I know that there are other companies. I know people that, hey man, when you own a company, you rule with an iron fist, and you might get people to work hard, but you might get them to, all the hard work that you put in, you might be getting them to leave. And with what we do, it takes a lot of work to get someone to truly be valuable for our company. If they're taking on a leadership role, it's not work here for 6 months and you're gonna do that. For us, it takes a lot of work. There's a lot of money that's put into training, because you got to slow everything down, right? Like, if you're good at what you do, you can go at one pace. But if you're good at what you do and you want to show someone how to do what you do, you're gonna have to slow down what you do in order to teach them to get them to that level, right? And a company prospers by getting many people to that level. And teamwork's another big aspect of it too. But those go hand in hand, right? If you're doing a good job at getting someone up to your level, that's because you're probably working well as a team together.
Yeah, that's amazing too, man. Because we've had a lot of the people we've had on have been more kind of like solo operators. Like Matt Benavides, he has one guy working for him. DMC, a lot of these kind of like solo guys, and I think a lot of like where they're going, their trajectory is towards more of like business owners.
Yeah,
and a lot of it, like you said, is kind of pouring more into your people. Because we're sitting down with Matt, it's like that dude can go 100 miles an hour. He knows plumbing inside and out, back to front. But when he has, Nemo's a great guy, smart kid. He's learning quickly. Yeah. But when he's with him, he probably has to slow it down and be like, hey,
absolutely,
we're doing it this way because of X, Y, Z. But then by doing that, it's like you slow down to speed up.
Absolutely.
Because then once that guy's trained up, it's like, well, now you have two of you rather than just one of you.
Exactly. And then you can get another person who's, you pull on somebody if you're putting out good quality work, customers like you. You take that guy who you've trained to help be you or another version of you. Yep. Now you can get another one of him too. And that's how you're going to grow. We always have a saying, it's a very big balance between having chiefs and Indians. You can't have too many chiefs because obviously then it gets very costly to run a business, and you can't have too many Indians because at that point, you got a bunch of people who aren't upholding the level of quality. So you got to have, once you get someone who can lead a group, you kind of put an emphasis on that. We have, we reward guys who do that too, via growth, pay, bonuses, different aspects of what you can do to help somebody know that, hey, you're valuable to me, know, and it's very important to make somebody, in my opinion, at least, feel valuable. And I own my own business that is, a business outside of the concrete ready mix and the concrete foundation business. That's sole operator. So, owner operator, I should say. And maybe that's one of my vices when it comes to that business, because I can get people to work under me. But when it comes to my business, it's unique in what I do. But I put a big, on all of my business, I put a big emphasis on quality, because that's customer retention now, right? Is quality. They, how you treat people is employee retention, and how good of work you put out, how well you keep up with the schedule that you've committed to, that's going to be customer quality. Customer, that's how you're going to retain those. So I do understand people who stay small because they feel like I do with my other company, that it's unique in what I do. I've built my customer base being owner operator, and it's tough to it is difficult when you have a high expectation to pass on something to somebody too. So I don't think every business is cookie cutter. I think that, some businesses that require big groups require, that ability to work well as a team. And then there are some of them that when it's a one-man job, you've built a reputation on, a level of quality that, it is very difficult. At the end of it, what I'm trying to say, it is difficult to pass on work to other people if it's a one-man job, and it's, you've set an expectation for your customers too.
And that's so interesting too, man, because it's like you've been on both sides of that fence. Some people have just been on one side. They've only been on the side of just being a sole operator, but you're on the side of sole operator and on the side of operating a how many people do you have working for you at the concrete business?
So, if you count all businesses together, because we have a concrete ready mix division, preferred concrete right here in Fall River, and one over in Freetown too, and then S&S Concrete Forms is out of Swansea, and so is our pumping division, our concrete pumping out of Swansea. In total, we're roughly about 60 employees altogether.
60 employees. Wow.
Yeah,
Which is
office and outside staff.
which is very different than being one man show.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, you don't have 59 other people that have you.
59 different personalities,
Yeah.
59 different vacations, days off.
Yeah,
So
no.
there's a balance act when you come to getting, and 60 is one thing, 120 is a whole nother level that I've never experienced. Maybe one day, that'd be great. And it's different from 25, and each, regardless of what the size is, I think they all have different things that you would have to cater to, because the company wasn't 60 right from the get-go.
Right.
My stepfather started, it was 4 guys, and then gradually you're growing. And now thankfully, knock on wood, everything's going smooth with 60, but it's a juggling act. It's not just because you have 60 doesn't mean that's awesome. You have so many guys that are there for you. You gotta remember, you want to go on vacation, I want to go on vacation, you want to go on vacation. There's a lot of different things, and there's a lot of different scheduling conflictions that come into place when the bigger you grow too.
Yeah.
So I fully understand. I know people very well that have 5 guys, and they would never in their life even dream about having 20 plus.
Because they're like good at what they're at right now.
Yeah,
with the 5 guys.
And as an owner, right, like everyone's gonna have, if the 3 of us, just because we own 3 companies, even in the same industry, doesn't mean that my aspirations are the same as yours, and that just changes the whole outline of how you're going to run a business. And I don't think one is right or wrong, or one's better than the other. At the end of the day, if you're running a business, there's certain goals and targets that everyone's aiming for. But the end result might not be the same for everybody. I know guys who, they like being owner operator. They make their schedule. They work hard, but they do it because they take the time off when they want to take it.
Yeah.
They control their scheduling, and they're happy. At the end of the day, if you're happy, that's
all
the
that
biggest
matters,
thing.
right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Because it all comes down to like Kyle Furtado was another one where he started doing the owner operating business for him, and then solely because the freedom, the happiness with his family that he gets more time.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think family is like another big aspect too.
For sure. And it's, like I said, it's also so interesting because you do the solo operator and you operate a business. Do you think, like, within your own business that you solo operate, you'll ever want to scale it and get more people? Or is it just like, that's what you want out of that business for you?
It'll probably be the way that it is for the foreseeable future. Things change. I'm kind of lucky in that I have both. If I wanted to help scale a business, I kind of have one that's already there that we could just continue to grow, because there's so many different avenues that we could go if we wanted to in order to keep growing. And if I wanted to do it with my business, then it would require a lot of influx of my time, funds into the business in order to do that, because of the quality that I have kind of implied with my name to my customer base. I have to make sure that stays the same, and the only way to do that is to be there. And that is true to any business, in my opinion. If you're going to be an owner who wants to scale, I do not advise that you scale with the intent of putting other people in your shoes to do it. Reason being is because not everybody is going to think the same way that you think. Yeah. And they might not even think that they might think they're doing a great job, but you might think they're doing, an adequate job, but not what you would have done. And then that's good. That will cause, all different types of rifts in the company, whether, loss of customers, even if it's just a few, but now you're basing your growth on retention of customers and acquisition of customers. So there's just a lot of different aspects of scaling. Truth be told, if I were to attempt to scale, I would do it with the company that has already grown. I enjoy what I'm doing, the way that I'm doing it. Plus, like you guys know, I'm a realtor as well too. Yep. So it's one of those things. I have different avenues to scale if I really wanted to go that route. So like most people, I'm probably gonna pick the easier one.
For sure.
Doing all these businesses, like, I always have to ask this question because, like Kyle Saboth was one guy I was really intrigued by it.
Seabith.
I'm
only saying that because you corrected us 7 times on the podcast, and he might listen to this. So Kyle Seabith.
Seabith.
If you're listening, we got it.
But he is what part owner in like 9 different companies.
Oh, a lot. Yeah.
He's part owner. So like juggling all, like, you have your concrete business, you have your own personal business, you're a realtor. What's like the strategy that you use to like
your dad? You have a family, right?
Yeah,
like,
your dad. You're another one on the way.
You have friends. You work out. Like you do a lot of shit.
Time. Like what's your strategy? Like juggling all this and still finding time finding time for yourself and finding time for your family.
So that's a big hurdle that a lot of people, whether it's one business or multiple, that people run into. When it comes to the business, definitely being able to coordinate and schedule your time. Like usually my week is scheduled out for the most part. Yep. I know what I'm doing on a week-to-week basis. Some people might not think it's the best idea. I try not to even think about the following week. Like I focus on today, and I know what I have upcoming in the week. And don't get me wrong. If I have something that has to be locked in and someone's scheduling it 2 weeks from now, sure, I've got my calendar that's gonna obviously retain that, help me hit those goals for the following weeks. But I put a big focus on today. I definitely plan for the week ahead, but that's typically it. I ran into when it comes to the family aspect, right? I kind of, because when it's just you and your wife or you and your girlfriend, it's easier. I always say I can't do what I do without my supporting cast. That's 100% true. Anytime this question's asked, I always preface it with that is I have a wife that's extremely supportive of what I do. Because of her, I can do what I do. And I've just been go for maybe the past, 13 years now, where I've very much so been on this lifestyle. It's accelerated over the past 5 years, I would say. But because that mindset before my daughter was born, it was always, hey, whenever you're home, we'll have our family time when you get back. Because I'm always very much so goal driven, oriented. I have a reason for doing what I do. I set goals and I always do my best to hit them. And she was always supportive of that before our first child. And even though, I had said, I'm doing what I'm doing so that when I do have a family, baby involved, I can step back a little bit. And my biggest mistake, I would say, was not doing what I promised myself at the very beginning. When my daughter was born, nothing changed. There were days it was still 9 o'clock coming home, start at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and come back, and I had to step back, right? And I think it's very important so that people are able to maintain what's truly probably the most important in life, right? Is family. If you're doing what you're doing to that extent, I got to imagine a big part of it's because you love what you do, but another big reason, a factor for what you do is because you want to provide. I like being a provider for my family, and it was a balance. It was definitely a balance. And I had to kind of step back for a second, and it was just, kind of myself seeing me come back. And I remember saying, you told yourself you're doing all of this so that you can step back, not fully, but to an extent when you have a baby and you really want to be there to see everything, because it is, I will say, very precious having a baby, especially in the super early stages. Very important to be there, because once you miss what you've missed, you never get it back, right?
Those milestones.
Absolutely. Even just the little things. There's just being there. So many things that you see being there that you wouldn't trade for the world. And the first month or two, nothing changed for me. And I kind of had to stop, look in the mirror and say, what are you doing it for? Right. Like,
And was that a conversation you had with yourself, or
internally?
or it wasn't with like your partner or your family member? It was just like,
No, it was me to me, just kind of stepping in the door one day. And don't get me wrong, it was not something that was said, but I could see it, right? You don't have to necessarily be told something to understand what's what's being thought. You know what I mean? And not in a bad way by any means when I say that, but I do what I do to be able to provide, give my family a good life. And if you're just going to dedicate all that time to business, are you really doing it for your family at that point? That was my perspective. Yeah. So I made a promise to myself. I set a time I'm always going to be home. And don't get me wrong, there are days that very rarely I do have to kind of break that rule, but it's known by everybody in the house that it's not a consistent thing. Some days you just got to do what you got to do, and that's it. And it was very important to me to be able to step back, know why I'm doing what I'm doing, and it's been the best thing I could have done was have that smack in the face realization.
Sometimes I feel like sometimes you need that though, like that heart to heart, like with yourself, because like people want to tell you, but maybe they're too afraid to tell you. But then once you figure it out on your own and you tell yourself, it's like, it's holy shit, like it's a good feeling, and then like you want to change for the better.
And you got to be true to yourself. Like there's nothing wrong with like an internal conversation with yourself, thinking about what you want for yourself, what you've done, what mistakes you made, how you can correct them. To me, I have that all the time. I'm not talking to myself, but I have those conversations. I look at, I lay out plans, I lay out goals, and you kind of like have to look internally, and sometimes you got to pick what's more important in life too. Like I was just telling you, and to me, that's having those internal conversations with yourself is, yourself better than anyone else knows you, right? So you can tell yourself when you're lying.
And I guess, like looking back, obviously you're 36 now, like what would you have told like your younger self about goal setting and planning and that whole sort of thing? Because I think it's something you get better at over time.
Definitely.
It's definitely something where it's like, someone go on YouTube and learn how to use Google Calendar, but it's hard to like lay out your schedule, because to lay out your schedule, you have to know what you want and you have to set your goals and plans accordingly into that.
Sure.
Is there anything you've learned that like tactically that's kind of helped you along the way?
So the best thing I would say is I've always set for myself for a long time now, short-term goals and long-term goals, right? Because your short-term helps you reach your long-term. So each year I'll kind of break down the prior year, see what I've done, what I think I can improve on, and stick with it. That's one of the biggest things. One of the biggest hurdles I'll see when it comes to setting goals is seeing people get kind of disappointed with a prior year and doing give up. To me, it's never about giving up. All you can do is you have opportunity, right? If you set a certain, you thought everything was going to work, you laid out, the month and the year, and things just didn't turn out the way that they are, is never get that like discouragement of like giving up. Because I actually almost closed my business because of that at one point, where I was like, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. And it was quite literally after that was when everything kind of took off, because it was a learning experience, and setting goals is different for everybody, right? Because we're going to have different goals. So I don't want to say like setting a goal is, I can tell you what to do. What I can tell you is set goals that are realistic, right? And especially when you're starting off, like give yourself little goals, because if you go ahead and do that, if you set goals that are like to the moon, and even if they're like, I hope to be there someday, to set those right off the rip might lead to disappointment. For some people thrive on it, but others might set you like, I didn't even come close. I'm a failure.
Like high standards.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you set, I tell a lot of people is give yourself a list of goals that you're trying to hit that are feasible, especially at the beginning. Because what you're going to give yourself is a feeling of success, right?
Yeah.
And okay, I can do it. So I definitely did that at the beginning. It's going to go completely contradictory to what I'm about to say. Is today, probably the past 5 years or so, because I'm confident in what I do, I actually say to myself, I set unrealistic goals for myself. And the reason I do that is because I am, goal driven. And what I'll do is I always say, I'm going to set my goal for the moon. And if I fall and land in the stars, I did all right.
Yeah.
Didn't Kyle Furtado say the same thing?
I think so. Yeah.
It's
a
and
Kyle
some
thing.
people it works on. Yeah, it's a Kyle thing.
Kyle thing.
And some people it works, but I feel like you can only kind of use that to your advantage once you've gained the confidence in what you do.
Confidence is key.
100%. So, like, even to get super concrete, like, what are the goals for yourself that you'd be willing
I
to
see
share?
what you did there. Super concrete.
Yeah, he knew what he was talking to.
You see what I mean? Remember in the beginning, I was like, he's very like deep. I'm just like,
We balance each other out, yin and yang.
All right, but go ahead.
No, I guess because like to get concrete, but like, what is like a goal for yourself, and then how do you sort of backfill?
Yeah, he's in all
We
aspects
are
of
getting
it.
all the punts tonight.
But is it because I know we've talked before, you're a very like analytical, like numbers driven guy. Is that what you would sort of guide people in to have like sort of like a metric for your goal, or is it more like
So
verbal?
I wouldn't, if you're just starting out, I wouldn't necessarily set goals on numbers, because that might be the biggest disappointment that you can get. Because I remember when I opened my business, the first year, I did almost nothing. But I knew what I had to do. Like, there's a lot of research involved. I did a lot of research. I do a lot of research. I'm a big reader. So I knew, all right, in order to get goals, first goal was start my business, do everything that I needed to get myself set up so that once I started getting a customer base, I had the professionalism behind me, because at the beginning, you're advertising, right? Like, and that was my goal. My goal was, all right, I'm going to print out X amount of business cards. I'm going to print out X amount of flyers. And I would quite literally, whether it had been real estate or my property management company, I would park my truck. And actually, this is one of the blocks I parked in. I remember when I pulled up, I was like, oh, I remember walking this a few years back. I would park my truck and I would go hand deliver everything to everybody just to get my name out there.
You'd knock doors?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I parked my truck and I walked with business cards and flyers, both for real estate and my business. And I would just be doing that consistently all the time to get my name out there.
Would you try to talk to someone, or would you more like a mailbox approach where you'd leave it for them?
It would be like a door hanger type of approach at first, but if I got a hold of somebody, always introduce myself, why I'm here. I'm not scoping out your property. And just, hey, started business is what I do, or whether I've been a realtor, or if I'm talking to contractors. I would, when it comes to talking to contractors, I would always feel out an opportunity, just have a conversation, be like, hey, by the way, this is what I do. If you ever need me, here's my card. Give me a shout. Love to just kind of give you the experience of working with me type of thing.
I love that. Especially like in a digital age. I mean, we do podcasting, we do long form clips, short form. It's all over social media. But I feel like the opportunity that I've been kind of seeing more and more beyond all of this, because this is kind of starting to be more of a commodity, is like that face to face. Brother, it's like door knocking. Like, I've seen a lot of stuff on YouTube, but like these young guys, they do like power washing and shit. Like they'll go knock people's doors for the power washing business. And I'm like, at first I was a little judgmental of it. I'm like, why are you going door to door? But the more I watched it and the more I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, dude, because the commodity is like on the internet.
Yeah.
Everyone can build this stuff and be safe. It's sort of embarrassing to kind of knock on someone's door and be like, hey, I'm so-and-so and I'm doing such and such.
You don't see it anymore.
I think back in the day, like maybe 50 years ago, like everyone door knocked. And then, technology started to build and we have all these new communication platforms and we're fucking holding microphones and all that, Before, you couldn't do this in the 50s. This is fucking something on ABC.
Yeah. They throw you nuts.
Brother, it cost
I'm going to go on a screen.
It cost you $1 million to have something like this. Now it's so cheap.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's like that shit. Like, it's almost like we're going back to like the basics of that sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I feel like, honestly, advice I could give to people just starting out, any industry, right, is throw that fear away or figure out a way to. because the only, if I've never heard of a successful silent realtor, right? I've rarely heard of successful silent business, construction business owners that you can get to that point. Like at this point now, I don't advertise a thing because I don't want to. I have my core group of customers. I've got, knock on wood, the perfect level of business, if there is one, because it comes in waves and you got to ride those. But all in all jokes aside, I have that now. And the only reason I have that is because of all the work that you put in at the beginning. And this is where it kind of gets back to that, like, don't feel the discouragement of starting out and getting little to no phone calls. Cause that was me 100%. Like first couple years, first year was next to nothing. Second year was a couple people here and there. And then if you do get to that point where you start to get some phone calls from the knocks on the doors or the flyers or emails, whatever it may be, bring everything you got. You know what I mean? Definitely put your best foot forward in putting your best product out there. Cause if you gain traction with that and you really do everything you promise and you deliver, the phone will start ringing. Because all it takes is, if you're in an industry that it's something that's in high demand, you're going to get people who you have phone calls from, you worked on my cousin's house, or, hey, you're a realtor for my mother, and instead you did a great job, so that's when you can start really dictating how much work you want, because you can still go and advertise. Nothing's stopping you from doing that. Yeah. If you want to scale, you want to grow. But the best customer is repeat customer and referral customer, hands down. I don't think anyone who's been in business will ever argue the other side of that. And that's going to be your stronghold in business, is customer retention and referral business. Because in business, one of the more difficult parts about a new customer is the trust level, right?
Yeah.
They never seen you. They happen to get a hold of you. They need what you provide. But then odds are they're probably not going to be too trusting unless you're talking to them and you're really talking the talk and you're answering all their questions, right? Comes to the importance of knowing what you do and knowing it well, because that'll help ease that aspect of the customer base, especially when it comes to new customers, is them feeling confident in how you present yourself. But you kind of have to. You can throw that out the window when it comes to referrals and repeat, because repeat, obviously they know what you've done and that's why they're calling you back. And referrals is because someone they trusts you. Mm-hmm. So that's a big focus. When you get customers, do everything you can to keep them. And when it comes to growing, once you've got the customer base that you like, you kind of dictate based on how much work you want to put in, how many customers you want to have. Because like I said, nothing stops you from the advertisement aspect of it, which is pretty much the only way you're going to even get your first set of customers in the first place. So that's one of the important things to me in business. If you're looking for quality and repeat business, is kind of what I was just talking about.
That's great, man. You're pretty much giving us a breakdown of how business works, because in the beginning, like you said, it's door to door, it's mouth to mouth, it's building that customer base. Then you obviously have to be able to sell them on what it is you do and the value of it. But then once that stuff is kind of, you got a customer base you like, then it's to the point where you're saying, where it's like, how good is the actual product you deliver? How good are your operations? How good are you getting those costs down low? Yeah. Executing when you say you would. Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of the thing where a lot of people kind of miss out. In this digital world, everyone just thinks about the marketing and the sales aspect, but it's like we kind of forget about how well are we actually executing on our promises? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And being good at all of them is important, right? Like I use Facebook, like many people do, for business. Instagram, same thing. So making sure that you're hitting all aspects is important. I just feel that there are some that require a larger focus early on, and some that you can kind of dictate later on. And when you get to that point, it's great. I wouldn't trade it for the world now at this point, being able to kind of decide how much business I want. It's once you get to that point, the biggest thing you have to do is just come through with your word. And if you're a person who you kind of built that in from day one, it feels easy, right? Yeah. Like, honestly, because you're just doing what you started out doing, but actually kind of less work. Because if you get to the point where you're like, hey, I'm happy with what I got for customers, now you kind of threw away a part of work that you had to do to get to where you are today, in the first place.
100%. And I think that's a lot of thing of guys or girls looking to get into the trade. It's like you have to know the trade or the skill that you have. Because then once you have that trade or skill and you're able to execute on your promise, then the other stuff's kind of easy to your point,
Yeah,
like, because you know what you're doing. That's the hard part. It's like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in the early days, they fake the funk, especially real estate. It's like people come in, never sold a house before. They have their suit and tie on their picture.
Yeah,
They're pretty dressed. They did their hair up. It's like, yeah, you look great, but like, have you ever done this before?
It's kind of like a car salesman type thing too, where they can look good, but like they cannot sell a car for shit.
Yeah, or they don't know shit about
Oh, yeah,
cars, or
exactly.
like if they're lying to you about what the car can do and the transmission.
You're gonna get sniffed out by a customer who knows their stuff like that.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
At that point, just honestly,
Yeah.
thank you for your time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go do something different. But I shouldn't say that. Or I'm gonna improve on what I do, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of big thing when it comes to it. If somebody you have an aspiration to own your own business, odds are you're probably already working for somebody doing that, right? And that's why you like it, and that's why you want to own your own business.
And if you're not, you should be.
You should,
right?
absolutely
You should go before you start something. Go learn from someone who's actually doing the thing.
100%. And when you go learn from them, put everything you got into it. Because if you're gonna go on your own, first off, next to nobody just kind of cold turkey stops and just says, "I'm gonna open my own business." You typically had to build a customer base before that, part time doing what you're doing. So if you want to know what you're talking about, go work with someone who knows what they're talking about. There's nothing wrong. It's honestly, to me, one of the only ways to do it is go work for someone who's extremely good at what they do and soak up everything. Put in all the time, because if you think you're going to go work for a company and you're going to put in the minimal effort, the minimal time in, those are the results you're going to get as a business owner. Don't even bother at that point. Go in with somebody who is really skilled at what they're doing, who supports you. Work, get as much experience as you can, and at that point, then you can kind of try to do something on your own and go out there and try to support your own business or start one to begin with, I should say. But a lot of it is really soaking up as much knowledge as you can from be all ears, and that's crucial to being good. You do. I can't even imagine anybody who is successful without doing that. Like I think it's a prereq for owning a business. It's like you said, you got to be working with somebody to do, to have your own business doing that trade or any business in general. So that's a big thing. Like to me, knowledge, research, dedication, really being there. And if you're looking to open your own business and own your own business, definitely get used to, if that company is offering you overtime, take it just to know what it's like, because that's going to be your regular time. Yeah, doing 50 hours a week is going to be your 40 easily as a business owner. And that's being gentle with it. When it was full bore, before the baby, I should say, my 40-hour work week was really a 70 to 75-hour work week. And that's, when you count every aspect of it, getting your name out there, doing the work, running the business in the background, because running the business isn't just the work you do out in the field. Running a business is knowing your books, knowing, to me, very, very, very important, understanding of taxes, understanding of business operations, understanding, I know I already said taxes, but get used to studying taxes. I did it to an extreme. We live in a great day and age too, where you can literally go look up the IRS tax code online. And I tell people, if you want to succeed in business, that's very, very, to me, one of the more important things that you can do is understand your benefits and what you can and can't do as a business, because there are a lot of things that can actually help boost you up, but no one's going to tell you them. The IRS says, here's our rule book. We give you the playbook, but you got to go dig and go find it. And that's probably one of the best things that I did is dig into that and start to learn, different avenues that you can go to help your business grow on the back end. Because like I said, a minute ago, was your business isn't just what you do out in the field. You do everything, especially if you're starting off as a one-man show. To me, at least, is extremely frustrating if I were to leave money on the table. And by digging into, different types of stuff when it comes to taxes, you can help mitigate that and in turn help grow your business, right? Because the more you bring in, the more you can reinvest into your business. And it kind of leads to another thing is don't expect to take much from a business when you open it. A lot of it, nothing was taken from my business. It was just always put back into it.
Yeah.
Same thing with the concrete industry. My stepfather was big on it. He would always consistently reinvest into the business, and that helps really accelerate your growth in a business. If that's your intention, is to grow the business and not just be a one-man show, is being able to kind of have the understanding in the back of your head. I'm going to take what I need, but everything else is going to get put back into it,
Because that's the only way to grow it, right? It's
Absolutely.
Like money is the fuel that grows the business.
100%.
Keeps it moving forward.
It's like playing with house money at the casino or something. That's how literally how I see businesses sometimes. I use my gambling addiction. But it's pretty much like, instead of using your own personal money that you like make the money that you get from the business, reinvest it back in so you can even make more money for your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Cycling.
And that's why I say it kind of goes back to I do a lot of research, and if you can, one of the biggest important factors of owning businesses, like we were talking about, being really good and having an expectation, a level of quality that you expect and your customers expect back. But another really important factor is how you run it in the background, right? Efficiency. That's my job when it comes to the concrete industry. Is I put a big focus on efficiency, logistics, and overall, like we were talking about how you manage it all. Logistics is a big focus of mine for life too, and that's how you're going to be able to. I try to utilize every minute and every hour in the day, and if you're somebody who's working for another company and you're doing your own thing on the side, that's going to be the key to your success, especially if you have a family. Like we had talked about that balancing act is, we were talking about planning for, the week, and that's what I do. And I kind of count for every minute from when I wake up to my end of the day. I have something that I know what I'm doing every hour of the day. And if you can get that balance in tune really well, it's just going to skyrocket your success. I never really have a wasted hour during the day because I've allocated something to it all the time. I have my, I come back home, I'll sit on the couch. To my benefit, I would say, and it's not a detriment to other people, but I'm not a TV guy. Like it's been one of my benefits to me as a person is that I like being busy too. So you gotta, know you. And if there's time where like, hey, I'm going to allocate X time to me time, there's nothing wrong with that, right? As long as you've allocated all your other hours properly, if you have these goals that you're trying to hit, making sure that you're utilizing every minute of the day is very important. Suggestion to people out there too is if you start your regular job at 7 or 8, get used to waking up early. If you can knock out some work early in the morning, that's probably the best utilization of time is early morning, especially if you can do something that doesn't require you making noise. When it comes to running a business, a lot of my stuff would be, a lot of the paperwork aspect would be early hours of the day, because you're one of the few people that are awake and you're knocking out work if you're focused in the early hours.
Yeah.
Do you do like coffee or anything? Like where do like?
Oh yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
Are you an energy drink guy?
I got my coffee in the morning.
How many sugars do you take? Fucking 17.
Black. If you're running a business, black coffee.
Oh yeah, dude, 100%.
Get as much caffeine in that cup as you can. So yeah, no, it's I definitely I start my day even today. I start my day early and I squeeze out as much as I can. Monday through Friday, Saturday, I'm always doing a half a day worth of work. And, before there was a baby, I was doing Monday through Friday, full days, Saturday, full day, Sunday, half day. Rarely am I doing Sundays half day now, unless I got a client who I'll work for you on a Sunday, but you got to be up early. You let me in your house at 6 a.m. and you let me out by 9. I'll do what I can do in that time. But that's just part of my personal balance act. Everyone's going to be different based on the demands of their lifestyle and everything. To me, there's no right or wrong answer in any of it. It all depends on what your ultimate goal is, you know?
Yeah, and your work has to match your ambition, right?
Yeah,
At the end
absolutely.
of the day, yeah. And for you, like, what does so ambition partly looks in like you're growing the concrete business. That's part of what you want to do. For your own concrete thing that you do on yourself, you want to kind of keep running that, and then you have the real estate thing. Like, what's like a 5 to 10 years look like out in the future of like you made it, you got to where you wanted to go, and then I think I can ask some questions going backwards and sort of add value from there.
Sure. 5 to 10 years from now, definitely heavy in the concrete industry. Big passion. I like my business too. I like it because I probably will keep that going continuously at the same scale that I'm at today, because I'm allowed to kind of create my own schedule with it. So I can coordinate with customers on what fits my schedule and something that still works with them, right? So I'm lucky in that, because that's kind of the nature of that business, that I'll probably do that forever. Real estate is a continued growth. I want to get my broker's license, not to have a bunch of people working under me, just because I'm a big education guy. Big get yourself licensed if you like what you do, because one of the things that I was always taught at a young age too is education can never go wrong. Like, it never be taken away from you. I've taken classes that I just like the subject. I'll go take it and learn. I'm a big learner, big reader. Licenses, if you're going to use it, if it's something that has any use to you, go get licensed. Especially if it's a low cost holding for to hold that license. I've got my excavator's license. I've got my crane's license. Not using them often, but I have it. If I ever do, I was just doing an addition in my house, and I can jump in the excavator and go do whatever needs to get done that day. So it's one of those. I'm big on education. That's probably something that I'll continue to do for as long as I have that drive and that passion. 5-year plan is really that. Like, really get even more involved in the concrete industry, maintain what I've had for my business, and the real estate. Just continued growth, but not a huge burst in what I'm doing from today. Just because I found a real happy medium. So some people, I know people that they just say they'll never stop. They just want to grow. Hey, good for you, man. Get to the top of where you want to be. But everybody's different. I'm kind of like, I've created a nice smooth pace for me, and my big thing is maintenance, which it was like we were talking about earlier. Once you kind of like got to that point, it becomes easier than what it took to get to that point. So that's honestly, I know it's kind of like a dull answer, is like be where I'm at today, but it's really where I want to be. I like it, and I like new challenges. Don't get me wrong, but I've hit that point where I'm happy, and it took a long time to get to that point. Like, if we had been having this conversation 5 years ago, my answer would have been totally different. I'm going to the moon too. You know what I mean? Like, but
it's like everything that you've been through, that the struggles, the highs, the lows. Those are all learning moments. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of like life itself. Because 5 years ago, me would never thought like I'd be doing where I'm at right now. I thought I'd be like a chef and some shit. But like, life just kind of like teaches you stuff.
Yeah.
And that's moments that I like to get philosophical. So back to our original program.
And there's nothing wrong with change either, because we might do this podcast in 6 months from now. I'm like, guys, forget what I just told you. I changed everything, and there's nothing wrong with pivoting from what your original plan is. To me, it's just very important to have a plan, right? Like, I just couldn't coast through life. I'm driven. I like to be busy. I like to keep going. But life changes. Life throws you those curveballs we were talking about earlier, and you just got to kind of adjust to it. But there's, like I said, if you had a goal that you set out and things have changed for a valid reason, to me, you got to just kind of go with what makes you happy, because it will, like we talked about earlier, that's the end of the day. Like, nobody you go to work, especially it's a great thing if you go to work because you love what you're doing. But at the end of the day, a lot of us go to work because we're trying to achieve something, right? And if you hit that level of achievement and you're happy with it, hey, more power to you,
For sure. And I guess what does achievement sort of look like? So you're going into the real estate industry. Are you like looking to be like an investor? What sort of like what's interesting about that whole thing to you?
So I bought my first rental. I got a couple rental properties. I bought my first one in 2015, and no idea what I was doing. It's just like, hey, heard it's a good thing. I've been living at home. I got to do something good with what I've accumulated. So it got me into it. I bought another one a year later, and then just started really liking it a lot. So I went from a rental property owner to becoming licensed because I liked what I was doing and I kind of wanted to jump into the field. Love being in real estate. You meet a lot of people, and I like that. I'm a person who likes to meet people. I like to sit down, have conversations with people. If you're a business owner and you can kind of sit down and talk to people, it's another growth aspect of business too, because you get to do the face-to-face like we were talking about earlier. So it kind of just like jumped into being a realtor. Now I'm at that point where I've kind of, I got my rental. I'm happy where I'm at rental. So yeah, I've been looking into like investment property type. And it kind of just, it ties in to what I do. And I think that's been a factor to, the success that I've had thus far is that everything that I do, all the businesses that I either work for, work in, own, they all tie in together.
Yeah.
And if you're going to open multiple, that would be a suggestion for sure. Do something that bounces off what you're already doing, what you're already good at, because that will help leapfrog success too. Because quite literally, you might be working at one business and get a customer for your other one while you're already making money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that would be some advice I would give to people who have an interest in opening a business, even if it's not necessarily what they're doing for work today. Try to stay kind of in line with what you're doing, because you'll find that you get traction a lot quicker like that.
And then one thing adds to the other. That's sort of what Kyle Seepeth was saying. It's like he started off as a real estate agent. He became a broker. Then he's like associated with like some sort of like mortgage company.
Yeah.
He has like this like I don't know if it's tiny homes or like ADUs that they
No,
build.
tiny homes.
But it's all like they're all sort of like they all connect together. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
one thing adds to the other that adds to the other, and it's. I think as you start to put people in places too, it allows you to scale up. So hearing you say that, it's clicking for me. Where I'm like, that is what people.
And my construction knowledge and background helped me in the real estate industry too, because in the process of learning how to be a realtor, how to be a good realtor, I had a little background in the actual what I was buying and selling too. So it kind of, even though it sounds like concrete and construction has nothing to do with real estate, in a sense it did. Owning a rental property did as well. It's just, if you can get something that ties to what you're already good at, it is going to help accelerate your growth too, for sure.
100%. And I think when people look at houses, one of the first things are the meta questions like, how's the foundation?
Yeah.
Foundation's concrete, bro. Like.
Well, and I got to utilize a lot of connections I've had too, because I've built a lot of connections through the construction industry. So I'm able to get information from people to use in a different business, or even contacts. I have a lot of contacts. From ground up when it comes to construction. So it's been something that's been very useful. Even I had no intention on going and getting my general contractor's license, but I went and took the course. That was one of those the education aspect of it. I went, would leave my office and go to Pawtucket it was either Tuesdays and Thursdays or Thursdays, 4 hours at a time, just to gain knowledge. And so I say, like, it's the knowledge aspect. Education is going to be a huge asset to you, even if it's not. If it even pertains to what you're trying to do, it's not going to hurt you. Again, just being able to know something, and a lot of different levels of education have come up in one way or another. Not right away, but down the line, it's helped me out.
How many licenses do you have? I'm really
So
curious.
my real estate license, my
Like
operator's
I'm
license, crane.
everything though. Everything,
Yeah.
everything that you have.
No,
You have your I'm talking about driving license too.
yeah, everything. No, I say I probably only have 4 that I'm thinking of.
Okay.
But I try to tie it in, is what it is. I just always try to tie in my licenses and my education to something I'm doing.
Yeah.
Or interest, I guess my interests, unfortunately, are all my business. So I say that, but no, joking aside, I really do. I like what I do. So if you pick something to, it's a very much so cliche. Everyone says pick something that you enjoy doing because it doesn't feel like work, but it is as true as can be. I never come home. Sure, I'll come home tired. Don't get me wrong, but I'll never come home frustrated at the old, I hate my job. I gotta do something. I haven't come home once like that. I've had my days of frustration like everybody else. You have a bad day. Not everything's gonna go smooth. But if you really do, hey, I never mind doing what I do. Doesn't matter how hard the day is. You're never gonna wake up the next day and say, F this, I'm all done.
Because if you feel like that, if you feel like after this I'm all done, you're never going to be able to hit those goals that you set for yourself. You know what I mean? Whether that's buying a house or buying a rental property or hitting X amount of money each year, it's like if you're not going to a place each day that you enjoy, then you're gonna.
What
quit.
are you doing it for? Right?
You're gonna quit.
You're thinking about the next job.
You're gonna quit before you get there. You know what I mean?
That's crucial.
Yeah.
Even just as a W-2 employee, just working for somebody, if you got to definitely gear towards something that you enjoy doing. It's just going to make your day to day tenfold better than if you don't. And find something you do, because but you might not even know you want to be a business owner one day. And I don't think anyone would ever feel that they want to be a business owner unless they're truly doing something they enjoy doing. Who the hell would want to own their own business that they hate doing, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Such a weird thing.
Yeah, that'd be quite literally the opposite of what success would look like.
And I think it might look what delusional looks like too. They might think like, I could be a business owner and get all these sorts of things. But to get there, it's like you have to put in all the work because you're working that 40-hour week on the job. And then it's all that other shit that's around it too, It's not as glorious as you
learn every aspect that you're doing. There's nothing wrong with starting at the bottom and working your way up, even if it's, if you find a job you like doing and that there's ability for growth, but you got to start down here. You're crazy to not do that. If you really like it, I mean, every business, this was just something I had heard a while ago, it actually rings true if you stop and think about it. Every business that's out there is a multi-million-dollar business in some facet, right? Like a coffee costs you $3. Dunkin' Donuts is doing pretty well. You know what I mean? So there's nothing wrong with doing something that is, maybe not looked at as something successful. Somebody made it successful is my point. There's in everything you do, someone made it successful. So you'll be able to kind of jumpstart, the ability to grow if you're just in something that you enjoy doing, And I love, like I said, I love what I do in every facet of what I do. So that's what's given me the ability to kind of get to the point where I can be successful and then dictate to how much work I want to take on to.
I didn't know if you had time.
No, it's all good.
You're on the mic, so. But no, I mean, I love that. You got to love what you do and find something, and you got to start where you can start too. Ultimately, is what it kind of comes down to.
And it's just like there's no shame in being at the bottom, and I think that's probably what's going to be the biggest factor in not being successful is saying, hey, I deserve to be up here, even if it's, I went to school for this, you're coming from a small company to a big company and you had some experience, but you got to start down here. Just do it, man. If you really are as good as you think you are and you put in the time, someone's going to see it. You're going to climb that ladder and find a company that you can climb that ladder with to get experience,
100%. And even if you can't climb it within that company, do that thing on the side. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
If you're a plumber, do that freelance thing on the side. You get your own customers. You start to build that base. You have that W-2 plus that on the side of it. You start to layer in other things, whether it's real estate, whatever. You start really small, but as things start to pick up, it's that,
You have to. I mean, I'm trying to right now think of somebody who just started for a year with somebody or even 5 years and just said, screw it, I'm going full time for my own business. And I literally can't even think of one off the top of my head. Everybody that has started their own business was working and doing their job weekends, nights. It's how I do it too, even today, because I still work 50 hours a week for for the company I work for, my stepdad's, and everything is done at after hours. It's either early mornings, afternoons, evenings, or weekends. But you can do it.
Right.
There's nothing that says you can't do that. And it's a good practice for somebody who wants to be like, I'm going to own my own business. There is no one I'm going to work for. I'm going to be just working for myself. You practice doing it, working for somebody and doing those weekends and nights, because it will take that to be successful. Even in a high demand industry, you have no trust out there. Like nobody knows you. When you've started your own business, it's been nowhere forever. So you're gonna have to build that rapport with people, and just because you open a business does not mean the phone is gonna ring. I don't care if you put it on Google, first name up in the search, because there's a million people behind it that have been established. And I don't know about you guys. I know for me, one of the big things when I look at a business that I'm trying to select when I have no one else to go to is how their reputation, reviews, and how long they've been doing what they do, right? Because it's harder to trust a company that's been open for 2 years versus the one that's been open for 30, right? If you don't know either of them, you're looking at two side by side, and at the beginning, you're not even the 2-year company. You're going to be the I just started, no one knows me company. So what that brings with it is a lot of time consumption, right? Whether it be digital, face to face, you putting yourself out there. Maybe you can get yourself to a point where you're a 40-hour worker for your own company, because you've built the right company, everything's running like a well-oiled machine. But that's not going to be the case at the beginning. There's going to be so many ups and downs. There's going to be so much time. Owning your own business is not for somebody who wants to work like they are as an employee for somebody, but for themselves. Because that guy who you work for, a guy or girl, whoever it is, when you clock out, they're not clocking out. Odds are, they're coming in and putting in a lot of time, and you're going to have to do that times 3, when you're starting out. So it's, not trying to put fear into anybody's minds of who's, considering open their own business. I'm just trying to be realistic with you. It's what comes with it's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest to someone starting off? Because it's like, you're that zero. There's that person who's been doing it 10, 15, 20, 30 years. How do you sort of get your first customers? You did door to door. Is it like a price thing that, like, do you know the pricing in the market, and do you go a little bit lower? Like, what do you like? Any hacks to kind of get it going?
That's what I did. A lot of door to door. I knew, I kind of strategically planned out what's going to be my best method of attack. Who do I approach, right? When it comes to what I do and who's going to need it.
Like, who's your ideal customer?
Exactly.
And how did you find that out for yourself?
So for me, like my business that I run, the property management maintenance company, it would be, being out there, especially when I was really focused on property management itself, was kind of being in the groups of people who are looking for work, who own, even if it's a property management maintenance doesn't mean you're maintaining a 20-unit multifamily building. Almost all of mine were single family and 2-family or 3-family homes that I would just get my foot in the door with. I did start to, but sorry, to go back on it, I would be out there looking for groups who are looking for somebody to do what I do. So it's research, right? Like you're just going, you're trying to target people who need what you're trying to provide. Whether it be internet based, door to door. Big thing was I've geared away from that. My Aguiar Properties LLC now, I do a lot of property management, maintenance, small construction projects for people, landscape, concrete, but a big focus has actually turned into foundation crack injections. So I knew when I started to get into that niche part of the business, I knew who's going to benefit the most from that. my thought was go to general contractors or starting developments, right?
Yeah.
Because now I know where I'm going. They're just starting the business, so it's a lot of kind of knowing what you provide and who's going to benefit the most from it.
Right.
So that's what I did. General contractors, I would reach out to them, just let them know what I do. Nothing crazy. Whether it was an email, it'd be Google, getting my radius on where I wanted to travel, and then looking up every name of somebody who would benefit from what I do. Just send out an email, send out a quick mailer out to them, make a quick phone call. Just, hey, my name's Kyle Aguiar. I see that you're building and development on 123 Main Street. I know you typically come with a 1-year warranty. If you have any issues with your foundation leaking water in the basement, this is what I do. This is my price. And prior to having that conversation, I go look at what you were talking about earlier. Look at my competition, know my pricing, what I'm competing against. And I would definitely try to make myself be the lowest guy, and because I've had that work in my favor in the past, even probably about a year ago, where someone's always going to try to barter with you, right? It's inevitable. Someone's always going to try to barter your price. But if you know very well your price versus your competition, you can do what I did in that instance. I said, no problem. I totally understand where you're coming from. If you're looking for any of my competitors' names, here they are, and here's their phone number. Feel free to give them a call. And then if you're still interested in me doing the work for you, you know my number.
Right.
And I got the call, and I'm the only guy that does his work,
Right.
So it is very, very, very important when you have your own business to know your numbers. You got to make your numbers work for you, obviously, first and foremost, because you can't go into business either making next to nothing, or obviously reverse, losing money because you won't be in business very long.
Right.
But two, know what works for you, and then know what you're competing against too. How many people you're competing against in your area. If you're doing something that is a very, very niche, unique business, you probably have a little more opportunity there. Because if there's not many people doing what you do, you're not going to set the price, because there is going to be a standard for everything, right? But you probably have a little more ability to fluctuate a little bit. If you're doing something and you're trying to get into a business that's super competitive, you're going to have to know your pricing well, because you're just going to be flooded with people bidding against you. Unless your name and your reputation backs that up, it's going to be difficult to break in. So that's another definitely a super important aspect of picking a business. If you have the intention of going into business, is know what kind of business that you're opening or starting on the side, and know who you're competing against.
Yeah. And I love that idea of like really going into like a niche or like something that's really like non-competitive, because it's like in the construction world, there's a lot of people do roofing, siding, windows, the whole shebang,
landscaping,
everyone, right? But it's like if you can go more narrow, it's like we just do roofs, and it's like okay, there's companies that just do roofs. But if you just do specific types of roofs like solar, it's like you start to go down the funnel of like, okay, there's less people here, there's less people here, there's less people here, and then at solar, it's like now they're starting to release. I don't know if you've seen. It's one of the solar companies, rather than the big panels, they have
shingles.
Like the shingles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like
It's
if you're a
cool.
roofing company that does solar and specifically that, it's like you're going to know your numbers better than everyone else, and you could have connections with distributors. And when you're talking to those points, it's like you're going to be much more appealing than someone who just does the general thing. So for you, it's like concrete inside and out. Foundation and these injections inside and out. The pricing. You have these connections with distributors, I'm imagining, and those sorts of things. So it's like when you go to do it, it's like, and you know how to do the work. So it's like anyone who's doing that, even as like a part of their business, you're going to eat their food because you're all in on that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely put a big focus on what you're doing, keeping up with, when you bring up the whole, transitioning from solar panels to solar shingles, definitely don't get relaxed in what you do, because industries change all the time, all the time. And if you get too comfortable, and somebody kind of leapfrogs you in what's out there today, and there's a better way of doing it, and you're not on top of it, you're probably going to get smoked in the future. You might not feel it right away, but the best business owners are always the ones who are involved in the company. Obviously it's super important if you grow and you scale, having the right group, the right team, that you can trust, that you all are kind of focused in on the same goal. But yeah, one of the, I gotta say, top things of being a business owner is being involved.
Yeah.
100%.
Being on the ground floor, because then you know what's changing. And then to your point too, man, it's like it seems like a lot of your success, even as just like an outsider, comes from the people you know, the networking and the connections.
Huge.
Because dude, as you're talking to people, whether it's general contractors, whether it's other people in real estate, whether it's your own guys on the floor, you're learning stuff constantly. People are going to say stuff in conversation. Like you go see a new house, or you're like, oh, that's interesting that they do that. And the guy might say something along the lines of, yeah, they're doing foundation like this. Started over in Indiana. You're like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that was a so you get bits of information sort of layered to you from all different types of people.
Yeah, we did that with concrete too. Now a big thing that's coming into play is insulated concrete forms, kind of veering away from a standard traditional stick build house to an insulated concrete form where you're literally pouring the entire house, roof line or even roofs, with concrete that has insulation built in on both sides.
Wow.
Essentially, you're building like an indestructible structure, because your whole house is concrete. The insulation values through the roof. The hurricane ratings, you're never going to get anything better than an ICF house. And we started breaking into that maybe, I don't know, 8 years ago, before it was really a thing. And that was kind of in line with my stepfather's method of thinking, is we got to get ahead of things before it becomes common practice. Because now we get a lot of business when in regards to ICF, and it's starting to really gain traction big time down south, because they're dealing with big hurricanes all the time, tornadoes, all of that. And it's one of those things, you can have a hurricane rip through your neighborhood at 150 mile an hour wind. Worst cases, glass windows are all busted, but everything else is still intact 100%. But it's kind of pushing its way up to our area now. And we've had guys training in that part of the sector of our company. So we've got a good grip on it already. But it's one of those things. It's just, as a business owner, I got success, everything's working good, I can start stepping back, go on vacation. You can, but every time you go away, or if you go away a lot and you kind of rely on other people to run your business, it might get away from you. In one way, where it's like you were talking about, you might not be keeping up with what's kind of in now, or being kind of brought to the industry. And even worse, so I would say, is if you're kind of absentee more than you should, is you better damn well trust that the people you have, running your portion are doing it to the same extent you are.
It's evolve or die.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. But it's fun. Business is like a little adrenaline rush for you. You get to see how well you did or how well you didn't do every single year, and you can dissect that into every month or week or semi-annual, as far as you want. But business is really cool, because it truly is, and there are outside forces, but to me, it truly is what you put into it.
Mm-hmm.
If you are gonna give it your all, and you take the right initiative, you do all the work outside of just the business, you kind of get to gauge how your success and how well the business is going, right? It's not necessarily how is Kyle doing as a person. It's kind of like, all right, if I'm doing what I set out to do, the businesses should be doing well.
Right.
And you kind of get reaffirmed that you are not doing well based on the business. It's not for everybody, but for the people it's for, it is definitely owning your own business is fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's rewarding.
100%. And what numbers do you look at for like success? Because I think a lot of people probably watching this, or a lot of people kind of looking to get into business. I'm sure there's some business owners that own it, that could own that watch as well. But is there any good numbers to kind of track, to be like year to year, like, are we doing the right thing here? Because the big one is like top line revenue, right? That's the sort of the basic bitch of the numbers you can kind of look at. But then you kind of can boil that down into like whatever specific. Is there anything that you like or you've learned over the years? Like, if I keep my eye on that, that's a good one, or month to month, week to week, we should be kind of hitting that, and that it's a good indicator of we're trending in the right direction.
Yeah, that's why I like when it comes to that aspect of business, I enjoy the ready mix part of it more than the concrete foundation part of it,
Uh-huh.
because the ready mix is very much so a logistical type of job. Your dispatcher is gonna take the orders that they're gonna take. If they're doing their job, they're filling every round with concrete going out. Right, each driver is assigned a load for 4 loads a day, and if you can get more, you're squeezing more. But that's kind of, you put your trust in them to do that part of it. Whereas for me, I can turn around and now start coordinating, um, you know, payroll, the times of the deliveries, how we're going to situate them, expenses. You can start playing with numbers. Is it more feasible to have somebody deliver our material to us? Is it better for us to pick it up? How can we reorganize this day to get the most out of it? How can we set up? Because there's different aspects that you can utilize in your yard to make things move more efficiently. So that's, I would say the biggest thing when it comes to that is you're going to have your gross sales, but what is the cost to get you all the growth? Because your my dispatcher is doing everything he can to take all the orders. How are we changing around our day? Because there's always going to be hiccups throughout the day. How can you restructure your day or your week so that you can fit in as much? The goal is you're reducing payroll expenses. And I say that in the most positive way as possible, because for us, we work with crews that are, they understand that whatever overtime it takes to get the job done, they're out there for us. They're working for us. But there are a lot of guys who are out there who are like, hey, if we can do it and I can cut back 4 hours a week, I'm happy too. So, it's that balance act. It's a different beast from, the concrete foundation company, because we're pricing a job. It's either getting accepted or it's not. And we're sending our guys out there to be as efficient as they can and put the best quality. Whereas this business is much more a logistical type of business. And you set out a day and you're going to get your curveball thrown at you. How do you adjust? And it's tough to break it down without, I'll be honest with you, without sitting down and like saying, hey, here's all of our expenses.
Yeah.
Here's where I try to reduce cost. And here's where we work together as a team in coordinating, scheduling, communication, and fixing anything. Because that's where you lose, probably, I would say, the most money is not having good communication with your team. They're not relaying information to you that you need to make the best decision on how to proceed forward. So I would say when it comes to an aspect of having a company that size where there's different people doing different crucial parts of the job, it's it's not even necessarily a numbers thing. It's necessarily of a team thing, and having good communication skills with your team, who are are all trying to work towards the same goal.
And so there's a lot of complexity on that end of things.
Yeah.
The other one's a little bit easier said, because you throw out jobs, they get accepted or they don't get accepted. So is that something that you track? Like, how many jobs did we bid or whatever, and like how many sort of converted into jobs?
So we wouldn't necessarily track what we bid. We will always track what we've done. So we're constantly doing that, and seeing a profitability, profit and loss sheet on all of them. For the most part, it's pretty consistent because we have a team that is very experienced. There's a lot of trust. It's kind of like go out there and do the job, and when it's over, it's over. We'll analyze as we're going and at the end. But when it comes to that business, it's constantly looking at keeping up with today's pricing and knowing what's coming down the pipeline. It's a big thing. What I do over at the concrete foundation company is seeing what's coming down the pipeline, because today we're dealing with tariffs, right? And during COVID we're dealing with shutdowns, we're dealing with price spikes, price fluctuations. So that was really a big push in COVID, and now I'm assuming it's probably going to end up being one today. Dealing with the whole tariff situation is keeping up with what's coming down the pipeline in 3 months, right? Because for us, we'll always look at it is hey, if we know X supply is going up 15%. Let's get as much as we can now and stock it. And if we know that there are things that it's a big question, it's a risk versus reward type of thing. So that's a big part of the analytics on that side, knowing what type of work we have, what type of material we're going to need. Are there going to be any disruptions to supply? If there are, having conversations with people who are your suppliers, get an understanding of what's coming down the pipeline, and have that conversation like, hey, if I put in an order for X now, what do you foresee in 2 months? Some of them will know, some of them won't know. So then it's on you to kind of decide how much risk you want to take in that sense of the business.
That shit gets deep, huh, bro? We're getting into economics right now.
Oh, big time,
dude,
big time.
But I think that's sort of the privilege and pleasure of sort of sitting down with someone who's kind of on the bigger company side, because we've sat down with so many smaller guys, and it's like they don't necessarily have to think about that material cost, but as you get bigger, that shit really starts to play itself out.
Well, COVID was crazy. COVID, we typically, since I started, in the office side of it, we would always book about, a month and a half out. COVID, we booked 6 months at one point, which was the craziest thing. Like to say, hey, I'm looking to do a foundation. Can you put a quote? And I say, hey, I would be as straight up as possible, because I always look at it like this, and I would tell people when I would tell them 4, 5, 6 months, I would hear, what? COVID was nuts. COVID was absolutely insane. That's why I would get. I'd be like, I truthfully can't get to you in 4, 5, 6 months. And I would tell them, I can lie to you if you'd like. I'll tell you I'll be there in 2 months, but I will tell you what's going to happen in 2 months. You're going to call me, and I'm going to tell you I'm not getting there for another 2 months at least, and you're going to be pissed. And no one wins that way, right? So COVID was a difficult time to kind of navigate through, but we found, being upfront, be honest with people. Even if I would get the what at the beginning, I would kind of run through that conversation like I just did with you, and they'd be like, hey man, I appreciate your honesty. I can't wait that long on this one, so I might find somebody, but I'll call you on the next one, So that was how we always approached it. But we were going through shutdowns. We were going through, the Canadian border was having issues with lumber. We were seeing, what do we need? And that was actually at a point where we would project out, as far as 2 years, because our concrete forms, they've got a shelf life too. And if we knew, hey, 2 years from now, we're going to be rebuilding forms, and we can only base what we got today, and they're talking about 20% increase on lumber or shutdowns, get it now and store it. And not everyone's going to be able to do that. We were fortunate that we could, but yeah, our projections, because of the amount of business we do, we wouldn't necessarily be looking at what's the work for this month. We'd be saying, let's project out a year, even as far as, not for many things, but 2 years for some stuff, but a lot of stuff we're projecting out for 6 months to a year. It was always extremely important to us to never be slowed down from those disruptions. So that's kind of the benefit you get from growing a business and reinvesting in it. That when a rocky time comes, you kind of can be prepared for it.
And when you're at that bigger business, you got to sort of think of like, what are these big costs? Because if you're a smaller guy, one bag of concrete costs X amount, but if you're a bigger business buying $1 million of concrete, it's like, if that's 15% more expensive, it's like, dude, that's 150 grand. Yeah. Whereas for that guy, maybe it's just an extra $1.50. So it doesn't really change his thing too much.
Right? Volume, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that was a big thing for us. That's how I've been able to manage expenses, is having conversations with distributors, like, hey, I know this is your pricing, right? We order X pallets, and working deal, having conversations, working deals. What can you do for me if I order X? And it's a very, simple thing that doesn't sound crazy, but we've always had a focus on, if you can save 2%, save 2%, right? Because just don't worry about, like you're saying today, we're just doing one bag. Worry about how many do you buy over the course of a year. And if you can save, and I do that even with my own personal expenses, right? If I can save, I'll take 5% savings on anything every time. If I gotta walk back to my truck to go, go get that piece of paper, I'm walking. Yeah. But it doesn't sound like much. It sounds kind of goofy to say to some people, like, man, I'm not gonna go save that $2. If you're saving $2, every week, that's, and just, again, some people might not sound crazy. I have a different mentality. That's $104 a year, right? But if you're doing that, that's just one thing you're doing it on. If you apply that to every opportunity you have to do that, you can buy the same exact things at a lesser rate. And it's like, I'm kind of like bleeding personal stuff into a company. But now if you do that, obviously companies typically spend a lot more, right? So that $2 might be $250. Now do that times 52. You know what kind of numbers you're accumulating throughout the year. And then, that's part of, 1 year plan, 5 year, 10-year plan. We look at it. We never look at savings as a today savings. We always look at it as a 10-year savings,
Man, I love that too. Even just as a mindset, because I think so much of like business success is mindsets. It's like if you have the mindset of like, it's not being stingy or cheap. It's like being like, hey, if we can save 5% here, that's going to add up,
Absolutely.
And your it's funny, like growing up, like, you have toothpaste and stuff like that. And my parents would always be the parents that would like roll up the toothpaste till the very end.
I still do.
I'm like, yeah, no. Dude, it stuck with me my whole life. And
I'll fight that thing at the end of the day. I'm like, come on, you got one more.
You got on the edge, you're like squeezing it onto the thing. Yeah. I used to think that was kind of goofy. We're just like, dude, why are we doing this? You know what I mean?
Understand now though, right?
But dude, because you take that toothpaste analogy and then you go paper towels, you go food, you start to think about your whole household. You're like, damn, bro, maybe I saved $10,000 over the course of my household. And then if you have a business to apply that to, it's like that shit,
100%.
like one little thing, one little like toothpaste. You don't think it's that big of a deal, but that shit spreads.
Some of the
every
most
facet of your
successful
life.
people that I know in business have that mindset 24/7. Yeah, I mean, big time when it comes to the business is if it's something that has value, why are you throwing it away? Whether it be material or savings, right? Like if you're getting net 30, 2% net 10, you're paying it anyways, right? Let's take that 2%, and that's what we do 24/7. It's one of the things, it's like I said, your personal expenses, that'll add up to a pretty penny at the end of the year at 10 years, 5 years, whatever it may be. Business is tenfold because I know when it comes to operating a business, especially as you continue to scale and get bigger, those numbers just start to skyrocket. And 2% might not sound a lot when you're talking about your income, but when you're talking about gross sales or gross expenses, I should say, for a business, you do the math, and you'll get sticker shock. You're like, I can't believe that's what that accumulated to. And then especially once you start multiplying it, if you're taking it, reinvesting in the business, look at it as one of the pieces of equipment you need to do your business, and how fast that savings will rebuy it for you.
Yeah, because if you have that savings, it could even be another employee. It's like, how much more work could you do with another person on your team that you just threw away from these 2%, 5%, $100 here, $500 there, that sort of thing.
I know it sounds like it's kind of getting away from business, but to me, it's truly not at all. Especially, I tie things a lot to the beginning of being in business, and it's like, to me, it's a very, very important thing to be cognizant of and aware of, because at the beginnings are the hardest, right? Like, you're bringing in very little, and if you're throwing away things that are useful to you, like I said, now I'm talking more about material, like, it's just 2 pieces, we'll throw it away. It's like, but if you use those 2 pieces every time that you run your business, why would you do that? You throw it in the truck, pick it up, maybe a little walk. I do that, and even today with my business, I still have the same mindset as day one. There's no material that kind of just, and I do see it a lot in the construction industry, where you see so many things that are still good, but hey, we ordered 10, we only needed 8. I gotta load it in the truck, bring it back, unload it, store it. To me, I look at it as like crazy. I'll load that thing in the truck every single day and bring it back. If I have a place to put it and it's not going to go bad, you almost like got to think of it as like, I got free material to do a job one time. After I've accumulated enough of it, I did a job for free, just labor.
100%. Yeah. Even just go a completely different direction in general. What do you do when you're not working? Like, what do you just enjoy?
Do you golf? I feel like you're a golfer.
I've been telling myself for like 10 years I'm going to pick up golf.
Yeah.
No, my free time is a lot of family time. I do have a toy. I like go cruising. That's one of my free times. I'm big on, honestly, just sitting back in family time. That's probably my biggest free time.
Little R&R.
Yeah. I'm a big Pats Celtics fan. So if my TV's on and I'm in front of it, I'll guarantee you that's what's on. I couldn't even tell you it's on TV today. And there's nothing wrong with someone who does, so don't take that the wrong way. But that's probably my biggest outlets. If I sit down for 2 hours straight, it's because I'm watching a Pats or Celtics game. Other than that, hanging out with my daughter, my wife.
Yeah.
My mindset is just a little different in that I don't like to be still. Like I'm literally just go, and if there's nothing to do, then I'm reading, researching something to the point where I'm having my wife yell at me that I've been reading about that.
Can't you just
for 2
relax,
days.
Kyle?
Yeah, exactly.
Why don't you just sit down?
But yeah, no, all jokes aside, it's my personality.
Yeah.
And if somebody else finds a different outlet, hey, more power to you, man. Everyone's different,
Okay. I'm gonna take a whole left turn right now because my stomach is rumbling. I feel like this is always a good question to ask. You're Portuguese as fuck. What is like your go-to dish for food? Like, say if like you and your wife you go out to a nice restaurant, TA restaurant in South Maine.
I was just about to say TA.
Yeah, that's my dog, bro.
Just
Hell
shout out Kevin.
Fucking love TAs.
No, TAs.
TA, if you're listening, sponsor us.
Yeah. I got you, Kev. TA's Portuguese steak. You can't go wrong with it.
With the ham on it?
Yeah,
Or
the pepper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I gotta have that pepper and garlic on there. Yeah. I'm a big Portuguese steak guy. If I go out, and I would get yelled at with my wife a lot because I am that basic. If I can't pronounce it or I can't see what it is on the plate by looking at it, I don't want it.
Stay away from it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember we went to one restaurant way back when, and she knew immediately. I'm looking at this and I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck this is.
What language
I have
is
no
this?
idea what I'm ordering. Yeah, and it was English as can be. I was like, she's like, you want to go? I'm like, absolutely. I can't be. Yeah. No, born and raised in Fall River. I'm a big Portuguese. I'm Portuguese as fuck. So big shout out to all the Portuguese restaurants around here. I'm probably one of the more basic guys that you're gonna run into. What you see is my Sunday outfit too, unless my wife forced me to go into get something good. That's about it. Getting some regular clothes, but I'm honestly, most basic, standard of life kind of living guy. I like being a Joe Schmo and just going to TA every once in a while for food.
I fucking love TAs. I'm gonna have to go back there. We're all gonna have to take a trip there.
Go right now.
The only time I wear all black is when I'm with Alex because he's got me on this wave now, and he's like, "Listen, you're supposed to wear all black." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Just do it. You just gotta trust
Don't ask
me."
questions.
Just don't ask any- and to this day, like I think I'm maybe 5 episodes in, I've worn all black.
If I know, you should have gave me the heads up. I haven't rolled in.
You get the hat on?
Yeah,
It's all good.
partial. Next episode.
Kyle, it's been awesome to have you here. You're inside of a Portuguese house, so it just makes it all fitting.
Feel like I'm at home.
Yeah.
I have Vo's house right now.
Shout out to your mom. I know they're enjoying Florida. So,
Absolutely.
any final thoughts you want to say, bud? No.
No, it's
Shout
been,
outs,
no,
anything
I
like
appreciate you
that?
guys having me. It's been great, just kind of going back and forth.
We learned a lot. I don't know about you. I learned.
I appreciate that. I hope so. I'm huge. I always tell people I'm an open book. I don't have all the answers. You might be searching for a long time in the head, but I'm huge on giving as much advice to anybody out there, especially when I see people who are young, driven. I hope they succeed far more than I ever did, and I'll give them every bit of information that I can to help them in any way that I can. I've been fortunate. I had a lot of people help me, give me advice throughout the years too, when I was at the very beginning stages of starting my businesses and doing what I do. So you got to give back what you get, right?
100%.
100%. I'm sorry, I'm really hungry. Kyle, thanks for being on, man.
Thank you guys.
This has been Too Legit. I'm Tiago. This is Alex. That's been Kyle. We'll see you guys next time.